Okay, that's 1 minute. Let's get going. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Rich. I am the Communications Director for the Maplewood Richmond Heights School District. I want to thank you for taking time out of a busy evening. It's always a busy evening for all of us, isn't it? But the fact that you're here tells us that you are invested in the life and the future of this school district, and we thank you for that. We have important matters tonight. In case you haven't heard, our board of directors last week, in all of their wisdom and foresight, voted to place two important funding measures on the ballot this coming spring. And while that's great, that's a fantastic start, I assure you that our sights are set years into the future. But April 8th will be a big day, and we're here tonight to tell you all about what these ballot measures mean, Propositions B and Proposition E. When you have a comment or a question, please use the chat function. There's also a Q&A button at the bottom. I will monitor that as well as our presenters go along. And I think that should cover it for now. Dr. Jameson, the superintendent, is here. Our CFO, Mr. Chris Holzer, is along as well. And our director of operations, Dr. Michael Dietrich, is here as well. So a lot of great resources to tell us all about these measures. And Dr. Jameson, if you're ready, let's get going. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Sorry. Drank too much water. My apologies. Welcome to everyone. I do want to also echo Ed Rich's sentiments around the board actually approving unanimously to add the new two. Sorry about that. To add the two propositions to the ballot here in April, and want to commend the community for continuing to want to be engaged as we work to collaboratively increase outcomes for both our students and our staff. With that, this process began probably November 2023 with conversations with colleagues who were doing similar initiatives throughout the region, and the actual work began in January of 2024. So as we continue to talk about improving communication for our school district, this is one of many ways that we will continue to engage community so that there is transparency through the process, as well as to continue to elicit feedback and answer questions that are surfaced by the community. In addition to giving you an update of the work that we're proposing to be done, and recognizing that depending on the needs and continued needs, adjustments that will take place there. Before we jump into the academic success of the district, I want to kind of ground us in the why. The salary schedules for teachers are not competitive within the region when we think around our surrounding districts. And that's primarily one of the contributing factors to the work that we began to investigate, leading into the decision to place the items on the board agenda for approval. Currently, the school district salaries for teachers are second from the bottom in the region. And the same is said for those of central office staff members as well. In addition, you'll hear a little bit more from Dr. Mike Dietrich in regards to some of our deferred maintenance challenges, which, if aren't addressed, will become bigger challenges for us financially going into the future. So, why is this important, and why do I start with the academic excellence of the district? Well, everyone knows that we are here to serve kids, and we do that through our staff. And it is because of them we have been able to continue to improve student outcomes for students, but also ensure that we continue to be a staple within the region around how we show up from an academic standpoint, but in addition to the diversity that exists within our school district, as well as the culture that is being established. So I won't read the complete list to you, but I do want to bolster the academic achievement performance on the annual performance report that is publicized by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education each year. And MRH is in the top 1% in Missouri. So we believe out of the 530 some odd school districts, we are actually ranked fourth. And we achieved 97% of those points. We are also within St. Louis County. We have the second highest APR, the annual performance report points, in St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County. This does not include the growth that we have had for student groups and being able to close the gap that exists between our students of color and our white students, which we had the largest percent of growth in the county compared to another local school district. So we are continuing to do the work, but you can see here that US News has identified the school district, particularly the high school, as being one of the best high schools in the area, ranking 7th out of 54 schools, and also MRH being noted as a place, best place to teach in Missouri, number 32 out of 464. So a lot of this, when we talk about teacher recruitment, teacher retention, in addition to ensuring that we have families who want to continue to move into our community, to send their children to Maplewood Richmond Heights to be educated. These are all factors that families look at when they are identifying communities by which they want to enroll their children. So previously, a lot of the proposition work from Prop E was to allow expansion of space as well as to address some safety concerns. And you can see from the enrollment from 2019 to now, we have settled and leveled out from an enrollment standpoint. And so currently what we proposed in 2025 in September, which was presented at the November board meeting, that the enrollment for the year would be 1,381 students. As of January 2025, our current enrollment is 1,394 students, and that does not include our pre-K students. So this slide really talks about maximizing our community investments in our schools. And what you see here is a comparison from last year, which would be 2024, that shows our expenditure per student for Maplewood Richmond Heights, and kind of showing before on the previous slide, per niche, we have been identified 7th in the state in regards to school districts that are performing in the district. And so if you look at our per pupil expenditure in comparison to some of our local surrounding school districts, you can see where Maplewood Richmond Heights in regards to the per pupil expenditure lands. So typically when we're looking at how we're faring, we compare ourselves to a Brentwood, a Clayton, Kirkwood, Webster Groves, Ladue, which are closely in our vicinity as we look at per pupil expenditure. I'm going to hand this slide over to our Chief Finance Officer, Mr. Chris Hoser, to talk about how we have continued to focus on financial stewardship, not only in the past, but currently leading into our future. Mr. Hoser.
Thank you, Dr. Jameson. So MRH did, on its 2024 audit, receive an unmodified opinion, which is the top level opinion that it can receive during our independent audit performed by KEB, Kerber, Ecken, Breckel. We also take every opportunity we can to refinance our general obligation bonds when the interest rates permit. That the economic climate has not been such that we've been able to do that recently, but we are watching those very carefully, and over the past 8 years have saved taxpayers $3.7 million through those refinancing efforts. All that with an underlying bond rating of AA- as reported by Standards & Poor's. Here you have a historical look of both our operating levy requests to our community, as well as the bond issues that we've been able to pass successfully. So you can see that there's been quite a expansive time between 2016 and current, roughly 9 years, that we've had to come back to the voters of the MRH community to ask for more funds in its operating levy. And you can see that our most recent bond issue that was passed by community in 2020, June of 2020, was Prop E for $30 million. So if you've been on any of our campuses, those renovations and construction projects have been evident. So breaking this down a little bit, you heard me use some terminology, and I would like to break that down just a little bit for you. So when the district issues those general obligation bonds or GO bonds, the proceeds of those bonds, we agree to pay back the bondholders or investors over the course of 20 years is the typical time frame there. And those include principal, interest, costs of issuance, and any associated fees as the servicing of that debt over time. Then we have a dedicated tax levy that we allocate to the capital fund, and that is at the discretion of the district. As of late, we've been allocating 10 cents of the operating levy to capital projects to fund repairs, large purchases, which a capital expense would be anything exceeding $1,000 with a long-term lifespan. So if we were to replace a rooftop unit on the gym of the elementary, that would be a capital expenditure. If we were to repair that, that would then fall into the operating side of the levy and be paid from a different fund. And then on the dedicated operational tax levy in the operating fund, that generates local revenue to support operating costs, including teacher salaries. Other incredibly boring things are the electric bill, the gas bill, the sewer bill, water, books, supplies, educational materials. All of those things are things that we use our operating funds to pay for. Breaking it down just a little bit further, we have 4 funds that we work in here in public schools in Missouri. We have the incidental or general fund, and that supports salaries and benefits, supplies, utilities, some of those other things that you heard me mention in the previous slide. And that is Fund 1. The Teachers Fund, or Fund 2, or the Special Revenue Fund, funds certificated salaries and benefits. Then we have Fund 3, which is debt service, which is a separate levy. That levy is solely by law for the purposes of paying principal, interest, and fees and cost of issuance as it relates to the general obligation bonds. And then capital projects, typically for maintenance upgrades, security, technology, furniture, any of those large capital expenditures. The threshold has previously been $1,000. It's been increased to $5,000. So some things will move as we budget in this for fiscal 26. Some things that were previously funded from capital projects will move into the general fund or incidental fund as per that regulation. You hear me talk through, when I talk through at every board meeting, as I deliver the financial statements or the state of the finances of the district, 78.7% of our revenue is directly from our local sources. 76% of that is from our current and or delinquent taxes. The remaining funds in the local, from the local source would be fee-based programs such as our preschool tuition, Discover Club fees, and food sales to both adults and students.
And so I bet the question that community is asking is, how will Prop B&E impact students and staff? A lot of this work will definitely be coming through the Office of Dr. Dietrich for operations, but one of the key items for Prop E is to become competitive in the region as it relates to salaries. I am going to hand it over to Dr. Dietrich to talk about how Prop B will support safety, academic programming, and infrastructure. Dr. Dietrich?
Yes, thank you. So just want to go quickly through the MRH proposed bond projects because some of them may not have some clarity on here. So the replacement of high school compromised doors. Basically, we just have some doors that are, some of them original to the building, 1920s, or just a little bit later that they just don't meet the needs of safety now with having a solid core door. We've upgraded some of the frames, but not all of them. But there is some work we need to do in the high school with some of those doors. Secondary locks, that's just a second lock on the doors. That's district wide. making sure that our teachers have an ability to lock down those classrooms quickly in the case of an emergency. Cameras across the district. Currently, ECC and elementary have very few cameras to help us, whether it's in investigative matters or just keeping an eye on the properties on weekends. Additional door access. We have continued to try to make our district keyless so that we just have fobs. It's much easier to shut those down if they get lost rather than having keys roaming around when they get lost. So that would almost finish off what we are aiming to do. Signage, we just updated our signage at the middle school, high school. And we definitely have some more signage to do there, but this would give us a big jump start on wayfinding and classroom signage. We've worked with both Maplewood Police, Maplewood Fire over at the high school to get that going, and we look forward to working with other municipalities as we move forward. The academic programming, the Seed to Table project, that's actually a project where that number is continuing to fall pretty quickly as we are working with our vendors. It will be kind of a one of a kind in the area. But I see that price. I've got some new ones coming in the other day. It is going significantly lower. I don't want to throw a number out yet and overpromise and underdeliver, but that number is dropping pretty significantly. ECC library, we talk a lot about innovation and having beautiful spaces for our kids. Just to be honest, when we were touring, we had an amazing committee that surveyed the entire district. Some staff on there. We had some parents, Carolyn Green, Rebecca Kleba, who are both parents, but also architects, were super helpful. But nobody walks into the ECC library and feels inspired by what's sitting there. So definitely need to bring that up to par with the other district libraries. The high school theater floor, lighting, curtains. That's actually the priority. Curtains is number one because that's a safety. Those have to be inspected and replaced as needed. And then floor and lighting was a priority too. Infrastructure, these are all uber important to the district. This is our building envelope. These are things that, or most of these are building envelope, things that we need to make sure we're doing to keep water out of the building, to keep business going as usual. Roof repairs, that's actually on 3 different campuses. Ceiling tiles, we just repainted a couple of the floors at the high school. We've stripped the floors all the way down, but we still have these ugly ceilings because the ceiling tiles are pushing 20, 24 years old. The main distribution feed, that's our MDF closet. That's where our internet comes into the district. It's very inadequate for our tech team. Maybe one of the most important ones on here is our DAS. We do not have one. We're having it installed right now at the elementary school, but we need to get that upgraded at the middle school, high school, so that first responders can communicate. Fire rated doors, replacement of condensers and freezers. I'm not going to go through all these. A big one that we continue to hear from students is furniture. A big one that we continue to hear from staff is furniture. A big one that I hear from my operations team is furniture. We do not have a surplus of furniture to keep putting out. Actually, yesterday we just had a local school donate 150 of their used chairs to us that maybe have a couple years left in them, but they're not going to match what we have, nor are they, what I would consider, something we would be putting in our building if this was a showpiece. But we are very thankful to be receiving those. But that would replace and put us in a position where we can put our furniture on a rotation over a 15 to 18 year cycle so that we're not spending $1 million on furniture in any one year. This would set us up very well to come up with a rotation for that. All of our parking lots, with the exception of our high school parking lot and the Circle Drive at the elementary, are in need of major repair and replacement. The ECC and elementary kitchens would receive a facelift. The secondary kitchen, that was number 1 or number 2 with every single person on the MOT. And I would say pretty close on our board committee, but that is an extensive need of repair, equipment replacement, and something that just is honestly costing more money each year with failing equipment. Moving down, if the high school and middle school cafeteria or the kitchen was not number one, then field update was. So this would include a new laser level field, a scoreboard, track and field lighting, and a new track. And this would extremely benefit the community, not just for, our track team, our soccer teams, our baseball team practices out there and gets out there and throws every once in a while. But it's also a huge benefit to the community. There's, if you just drive by it on the weekend, there are plenty of people out on it, and our community really deserves to have a showpiece, especially on Manchester Road where a lot of people are driving by. So, thank you. You're still muted, Dr. J.
I should have learned by now. Thank you, Dr. Dietrich. We are going to conclude the presentation. We're certain that there are plenty of questions. Ed Rich will moderate, and we will respond to the questions that we're able and also capture the questions that we are not to ensure that we're getting that information back to community. Ed?
We don't seem to have any questions in the chat or the Q&A at this moment. However, I am going to drop into the chat box a link, and I'm hitting send. Okay, that link and also the QR code that you see on your screen if you're using a desktop. I know you can't scan a QR code if you're on your mobile phone, but those links will get you registered for the ongoing series that we call Community Roundtables. Now, this is a Board of Education-led event that will take place a week from Thursday. So that's February 6th. We'll start at 6:30. It's slated to go a couple of hours, but you're going to hear from the board members themselves, probably in more detail than we got into tonight, but at least from the board members' perspectives, more about propositions B and E. We urge you to come. Don't let child care be a barrier. I'm going to add an email address to the chat. If you want to consider or know that you need child care for the evening of Thursday, February 6th, use that email address, and we will have individuals set up at a location to be announced for child care. Actually, we're not going to announce it except to those who need it. So there you go. All right. Yeah, I'm monitoring no questions at this time. Just curious if everybody's clear on the mechanics of what a debt service transfer means, how that works. I thought it was an interesting concept, a great tool available to us. We do have one question popped up in the chat. Could Dr. Dietrich explain how the track replacement is or is not related to the construction?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what you mean by, I know what construction is, but let me just say kind of how we've handled the track replacement so far. We already have two companies that have bid on that. They are very anxious to get in, meet with us, and discuss how they can move forward on that. Both are very reputable companies, but that would be one of, I was asked the question the other night in our board committee meeting and said, are we in a position to start rolling on some of these projects if it does go through? I would say the track and field is one of those projects that bond approval, we want them starting, hopefully the day after girls soccer is over, the day after track season is done. But obviously they need notice as well. But I've told both companies a big part of them gaining the position or the job for that is schedule, because they're both reputable companies and their prices are very similar.
And I wonder, Dr. Dietrich, just to kind of add on, if the participant is asking if construction, when we were having construction on the middle school and high school campus, contributed to the replacement of the track. And I do know that students and also track coaches had talked about our inability to actually offer track meets because of the sponginess of the track. I don't have the right term that's used, but I believe from wear and tear, and then also some needs for the actual field as well. So Dr. Dietrich, if you can speak to that.
Yeah, and actually Cindy put a clarification question in. Did Prop E construction necessitate track replacement? There was some minor damage to the track when Prop E took place. We did hold the vendor accountable for that. They did repair the damage that they did. But mainly that happened when they were moving the light pole on the northwest corner of the field. But that was repaired. I would say regardless of Prop E, this was a project that needed to be completed.
I would also say, in looking back at the previous long-range facilities plan, the track and field have been items that were mentioned throughout and recommended for other bonds through props that didn't necessarily make it to the list of things to be completed. So this is an item that continues to come forward.
I think sometimes we tend to forget that the track and the field are really community resources. We don't close that facility except during school hours and then after school for events. But otherwise, it's a resource for everyone in the area, weekends, evenings, and sometimes early morning as well. I had the pleasure of going to the Mid-County Chamber of Commerce annual meeting this morning where I tried to remind them of that while I was also inviting them to come to the February 6th Community Roundtables event as well. So now's the time, friends.
Yeah, I think it also says a lot about the track that it's lasted this long, that we've taken good care of it. It's actually, if you look at the length of life of a track, we've reached that, and actually taken good enough care to where we only have to replace the top layer at this point. If we continue to go further, we'll be replacing the asphalt underneath as well.
Thank you.
While people are thinking about their questions, one thing I failed to mention when I was going over the projects is currently we have partnered with a local architecture firm, and they have people on site all of this week and next week, and we're doing a full facility review. It will be the most extensive facility review this district has undergone by anybody I've spoken with. I don't know what's happened, 25 years ago. But at least in the last 20 years, this is the most extensive review we've done of the district buildings. So they're looking at roofs, plumbing, electric. I mean, they're taking pictures of serial numbers on rooftop units and looking at how old they are so they can help us build out a 20-year plan. Because the list we showed you tonight is not all extensive, right? There are a lot of things that we have cut from that list, but there are also things we know that we're unaware of yet until we get that full review.
And who is conducting that review? I think it's worth mentioning.
Corrigan Clark, along with Veritas, is a third-party partner that's assisting them in that.
And Corrigan Clark being an iteration, I guess, of Aetna, which was out in front of the Proposition E work from, gosh, that was 5 years ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
I'm trying to be like I'm not a certified teacher, but I'm trying to be like one. I can wait out until somebody comes forward with the question that I know is burning in their minds right now.
Just as a note, Ed, while we wait, we will be adding to our board agenda update. And so I know the February meeting, Dr. Dietrich should have at that time a presentation for the board just around what that plan looks like from Corrigan and Clark. from their assessment of our campuses and so forth. So we will continue to keep the community engaged and continue to partner and answer questions where appropriate from community members.
We have a question along the lines of how can parents and community members get excited about these measures to help make sure they pass?
That's a great question. I think one, be a conduit for spreading the message and sharing the information that has been shared here. Continuing to be present and part of the conversations. We will begin to not only have conversations within the schools, particularly when we begin to talk about furniture, and also be willing to assist with canvassing. I did have an opportunity to meet with three very active members of our community who are committed to supporting both propositions, and I'm eternally grateful to them. And so there will be an ask to have families to come out and help them in that work as we continue to get excited. But I think for me, our children themselves would be a catalyst for excitement because they have been asking for furniture at the high school for the MRH pitches with Rich McCullum. They always ask for track and field upgrades. They ask for furniture, as well as some other areas where we need to address our efforts. But for me, the work that we do is for kids. And the other piece of that would be the relationships that we have with our teachers. Our academic achievement results are a testament of their efforts in the classroom, in addition to their commitment to our students as well as our school district. So for me, being actively engaged, asking the questions, sending families and parents who have questions back to the district or to others who may be a knowledgeable other to be able to answer those questions.
From the standpoint of the District Communications Office, as many of you know, I'm forbidden from urging anyone to vote one way or another. But what I can do is prevent the information much of the information that you've seen here tonight in an easily digestible way. I have retained the services of a seasoned marketing specialist. It's a gentleman who has deep experience with making sure that information is compiled in a meaningful way and presented in a way that is easily understandable by our constituents. And we'll be confabbing for the weeks and the days and weeks to come on creating information that helps people make what we hope is the right decision in the end. So. Well, this is last call. Okay, well, let's move on with our evenings, folks. Truly grateful.
Ed, I think you have one
Here we
more
go.
question.
Christy is asking, so we have talking points. We are formulating talking points. I'm assuming that you're talking about something that we can provide to the community that they can spread around. Yes, that'll be a major piece of what I'm working on, along with my co-administrators and with the gentleman that I was speaking with earlier at the local marketing firm.
And the other question, Ed, was, will the marketing resources be made available for the community?
Absolutely.
That's all the questions I saw.
Okay. Thanks again. Go out and spread the word. And we hope to see many of you, if not all of you, on February 6th. Thanks again, Dr. Jameson, Dr. Dietrich, and Mr. Holzer, and fellow administrators who joined us, and of course, our community members who continue to support us so steadfastly. Everyone have a great night.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
This is the thing I was thinking too.